Hey, sports card fans, welcome back to another episode of Two Guys, One Hobby. Don, it seems like it's been forever. It's been a month since
I
we did
know.
our last show.
Yeah.
You're looking a little. You trying to imitate me? I see the
I'm trying to be like Scott Reindeer Studios. I'm gonna go down to here, or David Letterman, either one.
There you go. There you go. Yep.
Well, just
All right, well,
temporary. I'll probably get tired of it in a week or two, and it'll be gone.
No. It looks good. Yeah, it's been a month. Obviously, for those who follow my channel know that it has been a crazy since Memorial Day. Moving into the new house, trying to fix the old house up, and I haven't done much content. And Dawn's been great in saying, "Hey, when are we going to do the next episode?" I'm like, just give me a little bit of time here, and we worked everything out to have a great guest on for this week here. Normally, we've been rotating back and forth, selecting a guest. I said, "Hey, Dawn, can you help me out here? I'm just busy. Do you have someone in mind?" And Dawn's like, "Yeah, I talked to someone, and most of you are going to know who this is." Dawn, if you want to give just a brief introduction, and we'll get our guest on.
Yeah, absolutely. I was glad this guest could join us. I guess known him for maybe a little over a year now. Unfortunately, haven't met him in person. My daughter goes to school kind of down his way, and every time I go down there to take her to school or pick her up, we just haven't been able to get our schedules together. But a great vintage collector, great storyteller, and a really good guy. And if you want to bring him on, John,
Right.
is Drew, a Vintage Legacy. There he is.
Okay,
How you doing?
Drew.
Hey guys, hey, thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Oh, sure. Yeah. I look like the small little child at the dinner table or something like that with my camera view here. So there we go.
Yeah, you know what? You really don't look much different in real life, Joe.
Well, that's compared to you, Don. Yeah, I mean it's.
Hey, Drew, aren't you around 6'4" or something?
I am. I'm 6'4" as well. So
I'm lucky if I'm pushing 5'7". So
I remember kindergarten too. So
yeah. Well, Drew, what we're going to be talking about, we always have our guest suggest a topic to discuss, and you've brought up two things that I think we can have some really good discussions on. And the first one is sort of going beyond just baseball cards. I mean, a lot of my videos, I think a lot of Don's, to some extent yours, but I think maybe not as much as ours. We tend to focus on our card collection. And there are things we can do as collectors that go beyond cards, whether it be any type of memorabilia or special item. It doesn't have to be designated, say, as memorabilia, but if you want to talk about bobbleheads, signed baseballs, pictures, whether they're autographed or not, I think I saw Don prepare something I think may be pretty cool that he may show off. But there's ways to tie your love of, and let's just say baseball. We may be talking about other sports, but tie your love for baseball, the history of the game, maybe particular players, and go beyond the pieces of cardboard to enjoy other pieces that may be special to you or remind you of that player. And then if we have a chance toward the end, I think maybe we could have some further discussion on, I guess, my latest video on just some things that, I struggle with as a collector. And from some of the feedback I got from my video, it sort of hit a chord with other collectors of maybe not my exact same situation, but some of the things that they've come across with how they collect and some things they maybe just can't get past or whatever, or prevent them from really enjoying the hobby more. So, Drew, if you want to start off and talk about your concept here of the
Sure.
Going beyond cards.
Well, when this first came up, Don asked me, of course, if I would come on, and I was happy, just very happy to be asked. And I started thinking a little bit about what the three of us have in common besides collectors. And I know with Don and I, we've had a lot of private conversations about all those beautiful display cases he's been building. in the woodworking type and stuff. And of course, John, not yet, but as you're doing your transition to your house, and anybody going back to what you had in the old house, you love display, and we all love display. And I think that's a huge part for so many collectors. And the more I'm on YouTube, the more people I'm meeting and stuff. There's so many people that want to they want to show off what they have, even if it's not a high valued thing. They're not showing their 52 mantle. They may be showing just some card that they got, but they're excited and they're sticking it up. And as I do my videos from where I'm sitting, you can see this wall, and it's sort of a hodgepodge of just stuff. Some of it's vintage, some of it's remade. You've got some bobbleheads right here, just some other things that I have, and I like showing off. So I figured, why not talk about some display items, some things that go along with it, sort of not just the cards, but what are some other items that we all have that we kind of want to show off that is in a display thing. So it's, if you're an autograph collector but keeping it in a file, that's not really what I'm talking about. I'm talking about something that someone walked into your room and they don't care about cards. Show me anything but cards. You can point over there and say, this is cool because of whatever, and it gives something else an added to it. Maybe it does have value, maybe it doesn't, but that's kind of what I was thinking about. So I figured that's something we all had in common, so let's just talk about it a bit. So
Yeah, absolutely. I think that was a great idea. And even though I don't have a ton of memorabilia, I still have a few things that I think are cool that I think other people will think are cool. And like I just looking at your background, Drew, that kitchen gear that you have.
oh yeah.
Yeah.
I've never talked about that. That's a really cool thing. So that's
Yeah.
actually a mix of a number of different things I got. So let me think. I think I got the mask first. My brother gave that to me years and years ago as a birthday gift. He found it on eBay. It's a vintage mask. And I actually built this box that has the bobbleheads for that mask. And I got another old baseball mitt, which is somewhere else in my room. And they were in this box for a long time. And then there was actually someone selling the vintage chest protector on Net 54, super cheap. I think it was like 25 bucks shipped or something. And it's got a lot of wear and stuff. And it was probably little league or high school ball, but it's cool. And it goes, you can't see it behind the back of this chair, but it goes all the way down, the long, chest protector. And I thought, I'm gonna make a display. So I went on and I found a vintage catcher's glove, which you can see there. And the only thing in there that's not vintage is the baseball. I thought, so what I did was I went to like a local sporting goods store, bought a cheap fake leather kind of baseball, and I beat the heck out of that thing. I mean, I bounced it in the driveway. I soaked it in water. I microwaved it. I did. I rubbed coffee on it. How can I make this thing look like it's 80 years old or 50 years old, whatever, when it literally was on a shelf in a store 24 hours earlier. And then what I did was I drilled a hole. I fed a wire through it. So it's just a cool piece to me. And you're right, I've never talked about it on my channel, but
Yeah, I was going to ask if it was autographed or there was some other story behind that ball. And
no,
now, what about shin guards? There's like shin guards on the bottom of that we can't see.
No, yeah, I've thought about that, but I've never looked into it or got it. And honestly, if I was at a show and there was some beat up shin guards that were a decent price, I'd probably get them because
right.
But yeah, that's how that whole piece came together. It came over years. Just I had this and then I added this, whatever. And the only thing I have old baseballs, but I really did not want to feed a wire through it, which is how I would have to hang it. So that's why I went and bought a cheapy ball and just beat the heck out of it. So now my secret's out. I artificially aged a baseball, but yeah, I'm glad you brought that up because again, I've had people ask in comments, but I've never made a video on it. So
very cool.
Yeah.
So what's the first piece you want to share with us?
Well, again, I was looking through this after we talked about it through some texting, and then I thought I've showed all this stuff except for one. I'll wait to show that. But in talking about doing something in conjunction with a card, one of the people that I collect is Pee Wee Reese. I have his full Topps and Bowman run. and I think I'm only lacking 3 cards that were produced while he was a player. But he doesn't have tons. He's not like Mickey Mantle and some other guys. Half of his career was in the 40s before cards. So anyway, but I love Pee Wee Reese and I just his story and all that stuff. So I have a piece that I put together and it's kind of cool. So I'll talk about it a little bit. I'll show it first and then I'll talk about it. So this one I'm showing because it actually does have a card. I actually included one of my favorite Pee Wee Reese cards in it. So this is the piece, and you can see it's got a 1956 tops, which is a great card of his. Um, and then it has a vintage cut of an autograph down in the bottom corner. And then this photograph that I had found online,
Yeah.
and it's just to me that's from the 19 I think it was 53 World Series. It's hard to find action shots from that era of actual where it's close up.
Hmm.
And the fact that um, that I was able to find this photograph, it was actually taken in Yankee Stadium, um, and during a World Series game, during an actual play, and I just thought it was cool. So I had a friend who did matting, you know, and I'd send him the dimensions of everything, and he cut the mat for me and sent it to me, and that's how it looks all together. It's just in the simple black
Photo.
Hobby Lobby kind of frame, and
Is
I
that
love.
the photo that you had Scott draw your Pee Wee Reese from?
It is. It is. In
Okay.
fact, you give me a half a second because
Yeah.
I always show it off, and he pays royal. I have to pay him royalties to show it off. But hold on a second.
Oh, I know. Scott's all about the money.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So when I first talked to Scott about doing the thing for his, that's the photograph I want, and this is the picture that he drew.
Oh my gosh.
So you, if you go back to his series on, you know, chasing that Holy Grail, that beautiful Cy Young that he got, I was the second video in that series. So if you go through the series and go all the way back to number 2, that was me, and it's incredible. I watched that just watching. I mute them because you know, but um,
Joke.
I do watch it like that fast forward of him out.
That was probably before you were
But
even
that's
on
the picture
YouTube
he
when you
came
did
up
that,
with,
correct?
and it has been. Yeah, and in fact, he mentions that I don't have a channel. I had met him through Jake. Jake and I go way back, really before he was on YouTube. Jake and I have been friends, and I remember another one of my PC guys is Carl Erskine, and Scott had done a through the mail sketch thing for Carl Erskine, and Jake was like, "You got to check this guy out," and that's when I started following Scott. So really, Scott, oh man, his ego. Here we go. But Scott was the second YouTuber I started following of card stuff behind Jake, and Jake was a friend of mine, which is why was his stuff. And as another funny side thing, and Scott and I have actually joked about this, you know, the title of my channel is The Drew. Originally, it was just The Drew because that's what everybody called me, which was annoying, but it was what it is. I went back and I found out why, and I actually guested on a video with Jake at Jake's house, and it's a long story, but anyway, Scott started calling me the Drew, not knowing me in the comments. Oh, the Drew sounds like a good guy. The Drew sounds like whatever. And that's where that sort of stuck. So, man, second person I subscribed to, got one of the guys that got me into YouTube, and apparently he nicknamed me the Drew. So I don't know if I owe him or just don't want to meet him. I don't know. But anyway, but yeah, that's all the connection. But anyway, the part that I was showing you, I'm sorry, I tend to rattle, is this and how the card goes along with that vintage autograph. One of my biggest regrets in collecting is not is I'm sorry, wrong side, is not this autograph, but the book it came out of. There was a young woman who was in the New York area who had an autograph book and went and got tons and tons of autographs. Well, this was back in the 40s, and every one of them is dated the year and the place she got it. And it would say Polo Grounds or it would say Yankee Stadium or Ebbets Field, depending on who it was. She had everybody in this thing. And there was a guy that I had met through Net54 who had purchased this book, and he had put, "Is there anybody wants?" Well, I wanted the Pee Wee Reese. Well, he said, I almost bought the Jackie Robinson from him, but it was just a little bit too much. He wanted like, I don't know, it was like $350 or $400, and I was like, I don't know at this point in time. And now I could have should have sold a kid. I'm just kidding. But anyway.
So this was a book that she had, and he cut it all up.
And he did. He ended up separating it and then pieced out all these autographs. But they were all just a yellow piece of paper with a signature on it.
Right.
And then on the back, and if I open this up, it just says the date. This says 1948, and then Ebbets Field, and that's where she got it. So I understand the whole thing, but I don't have a problem with that. An autograph book. If it was I don't know, if it was a sheet that had a whole bunch of people and it was cut around, that kind of that made or obviously a document, I would feel different. But an autograph book, I think it was fine. And anyway, there you go. So
yeah, I was going to ask how you got that autograph, because I would have imagined that you may have bought like an authenticated slab and just broke it out for that to make that piece.
Yeah,
but you bought it as that individual cutout.
It was it's a page from an autograph book. So and the book was authenticated as a whole when the guy that I got it from purchased it. So
okay.
But anyway, so that's one piece I wanted to show off, just because I think that's a good example of how you can take a card and sort of add it into something
right.
a little bit more because it's matted and framed, but still, as far as a display piece, I think it's really cool. So.
Well, Don, what do you? I don't know if you're ready to show it yet, but as we were getting ready, I think I saw. I'm not sure exactly what it is, but I saw something that I think maybe
that I took off the wall.
You want to show off what?
The thing
I
took
off the wall.
Okay, so I actually have 4 brothers, but 3 of them are older than me, and they're quite a bit older than me. They're 16, 14, and 13 years older than me. So they were around for the 1960 World Series. They would have been young. They would have all been 10 and under. But this was always in our house growing up as a kid, and it says Pirates Pennant. And if you can see here, it's not, it was hung on the wall. It's got some wear, and I don't know if you can see with the glare here. You can see the hole in it there as well. But I just had this extra felt. Boy, the glare is horrible.
Yeah.
From my my display cases, and I went up to Michael's and I just bought this frame and put it in there. But I wish I knew the story. And actually, I'm going to see a couple of them this weekend. Of where they got that from. I don't think my dad took them to any of the games. I'm almost afraid to ask him because they might want it back. They might not know I have it. But
well, now is that from just the 1960s season, or is that from the World Series?
There's World Champions on it, so it's
okay, yeah, okay, 60 champions. Okay, would they have maybe sold that in 1961?
I mean, I guess it's possible, or back then I don't know how fast it came out with memorabilia.
Trying to figure out maybe how your brothers came about it. Yeah.
Yeah. One theory I may have. So I have a great uncle who was in the Olympics in the 1920s, and he worked for the Kansas City Royals and all these baseball places. And I wouldn't be surprised if it came from him. He gave it to them because my brother was telling me, he's like, oh yeah, Uncle John, who I barely remember, but they know him well. He's like, he would give us packs of cards in the 60s. I was like, are you kidding me? Like, what happened to those? Like, I have no idea where they are. I don't know how this survived. And if you don't mind, I got one other piece from my older brothers that I wanted to share. And then we'll go back to our guest because this isn't about me. But
let me see if I can get a close up here.
Yeah. So see where it says a lot of baseball coins, and they didn't even put the zip code back in the day. So this is an original envelope that my brother must have, or my dad or somebody shipped out with these coins in them. So not that the coins are rare, but I thought it was kind of cool that I think Hank Aaron's in here. That the original envelope with a lot of coins.
Is that the full set?
No, and I've never looked it up. Okay, here's the best one in it. The Henry Aaron. But you know, it's beat the hell. It's from the '60s. We spelled our last name wrong on it, but that you know, that 273. That's the house I grew up in. It cost 3.5 cents to send this sucker. But just
I mean, just to have that envelope and to know that it was that you didn't just buy it off of someone else.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's got my last name on it, my address, so it's kind of cool. And I don't honestly know how these survived, and all the baseball cards didn't. But just some cool pieces to have. You know, two things that were part of my family, but didn't really involve me at the time.
Yeah.
You know, I'm really the only one who collects out of the 5 of us, so
Yeah.
able to get them.
Well, I guess if I have one thing, and maybe there's a second thing I can show off, but in terms of a story, sort of sentimental in a sense, although it's also stupid. I've mentioned this on my channel, but I think it's been a long time since I brought it up. I had a autographed baseball, and Brooks Robinson was going to be up at our local mall for a signing. And it was one of those things where I didn't know in advance. It wasn't like, hey, you know, in 2 weeks he's coming. I don't know whether someone was at the mall and called my mom and said, hey, there's a show up here and Brooks Robinson is signing. Maybe John would want to get his autograph. So I'm like, oh yeah, sure. I'd love to go up. But it was like last minute. And so I'm like, well, what do I have him sign? I don't know. And so I'm looking through the stuff that I have, and this is way back. We're probably talking, I think I was in high school. And I didn't have anything near what I have today. So I'm looking at stuff, and I said, well, hey, here is a ball that I have that's signed by a Hall of Famer. Hey, that'd be cool that I could get 2 Hall of Famers on one ball. Well, here is Brooks Robinson's autograph. And let me see if I can zoom in here. Where are we? All right. So there is Brooks Robinson to John. My best, Brooks Robinson. Really cool, right? Well, I decided to have it signed on a Mickey Mantle baseball. Yes, so I have Mickey Mantle, 2 Hall of Famers, but of course, this is now to John. 2 Hall of Famers, but that is pretty much. There we go. And I just completely exited myself from. So the 2 Hall of Famers, one's National League, one's American League. They're not even members of the same any other club, I don't think.
Did you say one's National League and one's American League?
Yeah, Brooks Robinson. No, they were both American League. You know, all-stars. So yeah, that is my.
Yeah, it's a shame that Mantle ruined that baseball for you.
Yeah, you got to hate having a Yankee, you know, right there.
Yeah, well, you know, it's one of those things where I'm never going to sell it, so it's not like I.
See,
yeah.
To me, the way I collect, that's an amazing piece because of the story. Because you were young and inexperienced.
Exactly. That's why I'd never said it's unique. It's
at that point in time, Mickey Mantle was still alive and signing everything everywhere.
Yeah.
So, you know, to go out and get him at the next show wasn't that hard to do. Nowadays, of course, we would all kill for one if we didn't have one. And I mean, obviously you have one. I don't know if you have another one. I have one, but and the cost of it. But we didn't know. You didn't know.
Yep.
If people knew that, they wouldn't have thrown out baseball cards. They would have kept all this, who knows what. And then I don't know. It goes to the whole supply and demand thing. But I think it's a great story. I
Did
think
Brooks Robinson say anything when you handed him the ball with Mickey's autograph on it?
No, I think he was just like, oh, like he did maybe like a oh, or like, oh, like okay, and then he, it's like, hey, what's your name? And I was like, and again, not even thinking, oh, well, maybe I shouldn't get it personalized. Right? I'm like, yeah, my name is John. Oh, nice to meet you too, John. My best program. Hey, here you go. I'm like, oh, cool, thanks. And not to jump ahead potentially to the next topic, but of things that like frustrate me with my collection or things like that. That one doesn't, because it has that story. And whenever I look at that ball, I don't cringe. It's like, well, hey, you know what? I was young at the time. I didn't know any better, but they're two Hall of Famers and this. So believe it or not, that doesn't bother me, that happened, because it's an interesting story.
Yeah, I think it's great. And I didn't comment on it, but Don, those two pieces you showed, fantastic. The family story, the connection through all that stuff.
Right.
I kind of like a little bit of a mystery. You said it in both pieces. I don't really know why we had this and the cards got thrown away. I don't know how my brothers got this pennant. That adds to the excitement of it all. Like you don't know. I mean, sometimes you know exactly, but both of those pieces, I don't think I've seen. Maybe I've seen the envelope before. Maybe I've seen that, but the pennant I don't remember seeing. But
Yeah, and I remember it was all rolled up in a drawer for years, just sitting in there. And even when I moved to my own house, I never had it displayed or anything, and I was like, I really need to put this up on the wall. It's a great piece, It's my team, and
I wish I had something of my, families. I've got some stories about stuff, but I don't actually have any items, and I don't know. I think it's great. I think both of those stories for both of you guys, for what you just showed, was fantastic. Both of that was how we as collectors evolve and change over time. John, as a kid, you were like, oh yeah, Brooks Robinson, he's cool, and you went and got him, and now you're like on a Mickey Mantle, but and same thing. You just said it was rolled up in a drawer. You didn't know, but it looks great now, and they're the building blocks that add to our collection. That's how the stories are built, and I just love that stuff. So
yeah, I mean, like for that piece, I would not be out looking for a 1960s pennant. I don't collect pennants, but like you said, Drew, it's got family ties and it's got a story and it's cool. And that's what makes it unique. If I just found this at a garage sale, it would still be cool, but it'd just be a piece I bought at a garage sale.
Yeah. Well, one of the things that I have, it's in a box somewhere, but actually was never displayed in my old room because it wasn't necessarily Boggs related, but it has that family tie that you were talking about, Drew and Don, that you were showing off. My grandfather on my dad's side collected a whole bunch of different stuff. He collected coins. He was a bit of a pack rat, and kept like old dime mystery novel books up in the attic. I mean, he had huge boxes. He'd go through and all these dime novel mystery little books. But he would also go to the local newsstand. He was an attorney, and he had his practice was downtown. And he'd go to the newsstand and say, hey, if there's ever a new magazine or something to come out, the first edition, set it aside. This was back in the, I'd say 40s to 50s. He'd do this. And just, you name it, any type of magazine or something like that. And one of the things that he had that I found after he passed, and before my grandmother passed away, I loved to rummage up in the attic and just look through all this stuff, dusty books and magazines and stuff. And I came across the very first Sports Illustrated.
No way.
Now,
Eddie Matthews on it.
yeah, with Now there's two versions. There's like the newsstand, and then there's one that came in the envelope that didn't have. Now, I don't think he had the mailing label because it was the first edition, but it didn't have like the sleeve or whatever. But I still have it. Those the inserts there, they're still intact, and I want to have that eventually, framed and displayed. Could I have gone out and bought a first edition? Yeah, they're not that expensive, but this one my grandfather actually owned, and in addition to the Sports Illustrated, he had, I think, because I put him in order, I think he had every single Life magazine. He kept every single Life magazine from the first issue in 1941, I think, all the way through like 1976.
Wow.
He had up in the attic in boxes, right? And so I put them together and all that stuff. And I have a couple of them, but I have I think one of them with, I think it's the Mantle and Maris. I don't know if I have another Mickey. I think I have three that I were given to me, and it has my grandfather's mailing label on it. So that, again, could I go out on eBay and pick up those Life magazines and frame them and put them on display? Sure, but those are special to me because those were like my grandfather's subscription, and it has his address and the label on it. So that's cool.
That's neat. So that's a beautiful story that I've got a great segue for another piece to slightly move on. So you mentioned Sports Illustrated and the edition. I don't have the first edition, but one of the things, and I've shown this before, but I just think this is a cool piece because like when I come up with display stuff, I don't always just stick it in a box. I try to have a story around it, like what do I see or whatever. So I found this Sports Illustrated a long time ago, and it's from 1958, I think. Maybe it's 1957. I don't know. And I'll show it in a second because I actually have it in a frame that I made. But it's about the All-Star game. And the thing says it's a Battle of the Titans, the All-Star game. And it's got a split picture of one American League star, one National League star.
I know who they are.
And you what?
I said I know who they are, I think.
Okay. Know who they are. Okay. Well, if you're a card collector and know, in 1958 with Topps, they started making their All-Star cards for the first time, and included in there, Stan Musial was the first main issue Stan Musial card that Topps ever produced. And so I'll show the piece because I just think it's a neat little sort of story. And so it's got the Sports Illustrated, and of course it's got Stan Musial and Ted Williams. And what I did was I got the Ted Williams All-Star card and I stuck it on one side, and the Stan Musial and put it on the other side to create, again, sort of a story about the All-Star game. Both of them in mid-swing. I love the picture on the front.
Oh, yeah.
Both of them in mid-stride. Both of them were left-handed, but the fact that they faced each other in the two photographs, I just think it's a great cover of a great, Sports Illustrated with that red. And then, of course, with the two cards, the Musial, the stars. I love, out of all the All-Star cards, I still, my opinion is the 58 is just the best design. And there's some other great designs, don't get me wrong, but so there's another opportunity is to pair cards with magazines. And I know your last guest, Terry and I have gotten to know each other pretty well since I've been on YouTube, and we text occasionally. And that's a big thing for him is his father-in-law's magazine collection, and he does a lot of videos where he'll pair up, and not just superstars like this, guys that are sort of they had a good 2 weeks, so they put them on the cover of a Sports Illustrated or a sport magazine, and he'll find a card that goes along with it and tell the story. I love watching his videos.
Yeah, he's really good at coming up with creative ways to talk about cards or players or magazines, and as I think you are too, and I think that's what makes both of your channels so great. It's I gravitate to guys who show cards or tell stories. I don't care about the state of the hobby and who's grading what. And to be honest, I know to wear comfortable shoes at the National. I won't be watching any of these. It's the storytellers that I think
Yeah. Well, I appreciate that. To be lumped anywhere near Terry is quite an honor for me. So I appreciate that. I really look up to him. He's a super great guy personally,
Mhm.
a nice person. So, but yeah, as far as the magazines, it's another way to show something off. So, um, I'll show off one more piece since
Well, you're just talking about magazines real quickly.
okay, so that's the one usual that I really would
Yeah.
love that.
This is a gift from Jesse Think Blue 77.
Yeah, I remember when I got it,
And I've been looking for this for a long time and wanted it. And
that's a great. The white and the red is just
yeah,
fantastic.
I love it.
So a little connection to my childhood, but the item I'm showing is not the one I owned as a child. So remember nowadays there's giveaways all the time at stadiums, a lot of bobbleheads and all this stuff, and it's part of the state of the game, and I think it's great. Back when I was a kid, I grew up outside of New York City, and I was a Mets fan. And the company that my dad worked for had box seat tickets, so we would go to probably, I don't know, 4, 5, 6 Mets games every year at Shea Stadium, and I would always, look to see they would have maybe 6 giveaways throughout the season, and I remember when we went one time and it was Bat Day, and they had those little mini bats, and man, I had that little bat, man. I mean, my brother and I would crumple up paper and we played baseball on our knees, you know what I mean, hitting it with it, and it was just that little thing, and of course as time got on, grew on, and I grew up, moved on, and my parents got rid of stuff. My dad got transferred his company after I was in college, and I basically did. I don't have really anything left from my childhood, which is fine because I didn't have a lot anyway. But last year, my wife and I, every once in a while, when we're out together, we'll go to antique stores, and I'm always looking for baseball stuff. Now I live in Georgia, and both of you guys live up north, and I would die to be able to go into antique stores and find baseball because there is nothing down here. There is no baseball related vintage stuff in there. It's very, very rare I find anything. At best, you might find a little league glove, but that's it. And but anyway, last year I think we were up in Knoxville, Tennessee. Actually, we went away for a weekend together, and I was walking through a thing, and I found a little mini baseball bat, and it's the exact bat that I had when I was a kid, and it's a little bat. It's got the little New York Mets brand, and that's it. There's no advertising on it. There's no like, sponsored by so and so or anything. It's just when you walked in, they gave every kid a weapon and said, "Here you go." And it's the exact. It is a weird shape. It's not very cut very well. It doesn't. The I don't know. This one is chipped really bad, and it's perfect. I love
Yeah.
this because it's a connection. In fact, now looking at it, if you know anything about woodworking, it actually has the hole in it where it was
Right.
so they didn't even finish it out, and I think it's fantastic. And when I
Amazing you found the exact one.
yeah, and it's funny, and because it's beat up, and honestly, it looks like I probably won't show up, but it looks like it was slightly chewed on by a dog or something.
Yeah, it does.
I'm telling you, this could have been my bat for all I know. How it got to Knoxville, I have no idea. But this is so much like it, and it was $5, I remember. And I laughed, and my wife said, "What?" I said, "Oh, I had that bat as a kid." And she said, "Why don't you get it?" I was like, "Nah, I don't. What am I going to get that?" And this is what makes my wife and so many of our wives so great. I turn around and she's bringing it to the counter, and she said, "We're going to get this." I said, "We don't have to get this." "Oh no, you need to get this." And for $5, it's just bringing me a lot of memories. So it's not displays with cars or anything, but as far as a connection to our history, this is about as close as I'll probably ever get because I didn't have much as a kid, but I did have this bat, so I think it's kind of a cool story. So there you go.
No, that's pretty cool. And it's cool that you got the story with your wife with it,
Oh yeah, she's fantastic. I've got so many great weird things that she bought. In fact, I'm going to show something because it's always in the background. I've never talked about it, and I've had a few people say, "Can you show that off?" So I'm going to show it off.
Is it the egg beater?
Yes.
All right.
May have been one of the people. she bought this for me for Christmas a couple years ago. She found it on Etsy or something, and it's hard to make out. Take the tag away, but it's a baseball player.
Oh yeah.
Oh, that's wild. I literally thought you just had egg beaters then, Meg.
Well, and
Yeah.
and maybe it was you that said, and the egg beater comes out. So but that's all it is some forks and some spoons for feet.
Uh,
I found this, and this was Christmas morning 2 years ago, I think, and it's fantastic. It's weird and dumb, but it's great. So.
Yeah.
So when you see it, that's what's back there. Because I think you are one of the people who say, "What's with the egg beater?"
I did.
So now you know. So there you go. But anyway, that's what I have on that stuff. So.
Well, I have one other thing that I can show off, and obviously I don't have really any of the Boggs stuff now on display, but you saw in the background I had a whole bunch of different stuff. But a lot of that was bought off of eBay. There were some things I've had Wade sign personally, some jerseys and things like that. But I think it was I'm trying to remember which show it was. I think it may have been the last one that I saw him at, which was in northern New Jersey around January, February of this year. And I wanted to go, obviously, to go see him, and I wasn't sure what to have him sign. And I'm like, well, I don't have a autographed baseball. I have autographed baseballs, but ones that I've purchased or whatever. I never had one that was personalized to me. Because again, for me, when it comes to Wade Boggs, I want that personalization. I know it may affect, I'm not looking to sell, but even if my son gets my collection and goes to sell, those unique pieces probably wouldn't sell for as much as just a regular autograph.
Oh, you didn't
Yeah.
get a Ruth ball signed by him, did you? Like you did.
No, I didn't get a Babe Ruth ball signed by him. No. But so when I got in line, I said, hey Wade, I said, I was thinking of things, and I said, I realized that I don't have a baseball signed by you. And I said, well, I'd love for you to personalize it in some way. He's like, well, what do you want me to put on it? I'm like, so I told him, I said, put whatever you want on it. So I was thinking that he would, put, Wade Boggs, Hall of Fame, and maybe one of his stats or something like that. Well, he shocked me by, this is what he put on the ball. And again, this makes this autograph baseball just that much special. And oh geez, I must have removed myself from the live stream again. So here we go. All right, so we have obviously Boggs's signature there, but he put to John, thanks for collecting. So obviously he recognized me as one of his bigger collector's fans, and I don't know of any other ball that you could have, okay, Pete Rose, I'm sorry I bet on baseball, or there may be others that have maybe put some sort of statement or something on the ball, but here we have Wade Boggs, to me, saying thanks for collecting, and that was him coming up with it. He didn't ask, hey, is this okay? He just said, oh, I gotcha, and he just started writing and then handed it to me. And when I read it, I'm like, that is perfect. That just perfectly sums up my, well, not lifelong, but my decades-long obsession with collecting his stuff, and then for him to recognize that on the ball and all that stuff. So this will always be a special baseball in my Wade Boggs collection.
That's really cool. And you're right. I don't know. I was trying to get, I think I've seen it before, but I was trying to guess, like, what would be the perfect impromptu salutation. And the fact that he just said, thanks for collecting, that makes it so personal. Not just because he put your name, but, he's thanking. I don't know. I like that. That's really cool. That's cool of him, and cool of him to recognize it of you. Because I can easily see why a lot of players forget that connection, that they are famous not because of their skill, but because people want to watch them use their skill. There's plenty of skilled people in this world that don't have a fan base. They're just not athletes. And for him to recognize that because of fans, I think that's great. So fantastic piece, great piece.
Yeah, what's awesome about your collection, John, is the person that you collect, you personally know. He knows who you are. You've been able to interview him. I mean, that's a pretty unique situation. A lot of us collect guys that, even if they were alive, I'm pretty sure I wasn't going to get a Christmas card from Stan Musial.
Yeah.
It's just, it's very cool that you have that connection.
Yeah, I'm very, very lucky in that sense. And hopefully to give now, Drew, are you going to the National?
No, I'm not. I have to make a ridiculous video about me not going because apparently that's what people want. But no, I'm not able to go, not this year. And so,
right. Well, I'll be going this year. I know Don unfortunately can't go as well, but I'll be meeting Wade on Sunday. I think he's signing, and this will be my 10th meeting. And let's just say I have something in the works that it's going to be a special. Hopefully, it'll work out that it'll take place at the National, but hopefully it'll be a really special meeting for our 10th. Because I could be adding some special items to my collection. What?
It's not like our 10th date. It's gonna be
our 10th anniversary. Yes, and
getting curious.
But
either you exchange texting or there'll be a restraining order at some point.
Right.
Yes. Yep. Yeah. Well, my good friend Rich, who's the ultimate Boggs collector. The joke around goes that if Wade ever goes missing, he's in Rich's basement.
He just collected him, the ultimate collector.
Right.
Yeah.
Have you ever? I'm just curious. Have you ever given him anything like that baseball? I thought, how cool would it be if you signed a ball and said, Wade, thanks for caring, and just give it to him. Whether he is like, hey, and throws it away or keeps it. I don't know. I think that's kind of a cool.
I've given him. Now I'm trying to think. It was at least one, if not two, for the National. Last couple of years, I've been in a lot of YouTubers. I think I don't know if Don, if you've done one. I think Drew, you've done custom cards.
I've not.
Sent out as, with care packages and stuff like that. It's a fun little thing to do.
Sure.
Well, I think on one occasion, if not twice, I've given Wade a copy of the card that's signed by me, and usually I serial number, and I give him card number 26 out of 50 or 60 or whatever the case may be. I reserve card number 26 and I give it to him. So I think I've given him two of those cards.
Okay.
Sometimes at the National, whatever, and say, hey, here's, and goes, oh, yeah, that's. So I have given him a little something. But
I wondered because I was looking on eBay and saw that, and now I know where it came from.
Yeah. 99-cent special. Yep.
Buy it now. No, that's great. That's exactly what I'm talking about. I think that's awesome. So very good. Very good indeed.
Well, maybe we got about 12 minutes left. We can maybe touch a little bit upon the other thing. But before we do that, as usual, I try, and sometimes Don, I'm not sure if he's prepared with one. I always try to think of a trivia question.
Okay.
And I don't think I asked this one before. Of course, this is episode 7. It's been a month. My brain is all mush with everything going on, but I don't think I asked this one before. So let's see if either one of you can get this. And again, I try to keep these more on the vintage side and not modern trivia questions. But here's the question. Who led his league in ERA more times than any other pitcher?
ERA, any other pitcher?
Led his league, not necessarily major league, but led his league in ERA more times than any other pitcher.
Satchel Paige, Negro League.
No, I don't know. This trivia question now. I mean, you bring up a good point, Don, because now they've officially recognized Negro League statistics, right?
Well, what made me say that? Because you said any league. I thought that was a little.
Oh no! I meant that, like not
the American National
Major League.
I thought it was
But but that's good. And I don't know honestly if these questions were done. They were probably done prior to opening up the Negro League records as official Major League uh, records. So I'm assuming this is still correct, but
Go ahead, Drew. What's your guess?
I'm kind of torn between two. One had a longer career. Both were all-time greats. Um, I'm gonna say Walter Johnson.
That was my next guess.
And the
no,
other,
it wasn't Walter Johnson. It is you have the not
Right.
quite the right time frame. It is pre-war. It was a pre-war pitcher.
well, my other thought was Christy Mathewson, but I don't. I'm going to go back on that a little bit. It was just baseball was different at that point. ERA. So Lefty Grove. That's my other pre-war guess. So
Lefty Grove, it is.
There you
Okay.
go.
You're right.
All
You're
right.
right. He led the American League in ERA 9 times, including 4 seasons in a row from 1929 to 1932 with the Philadelphia A's.
Okay, good.
9-time ERA leader in the American League.
Wow.
Lefty Grove. Yep. Good job.
Good. All right, good. I'm glad I got that close.
Yeah.
Very
So, with the few minutes we have here, we can go maybe a little bit longer than an hour here. But you Drew, you mentioned when we were pre-show discussion and stuff of maybe wanting to make some comments on the last video I did about different things, whether it be some of the issues I had with my graded cards. I know you are a non-graded card collector, just like Jake, Legends Never Die. And I think we have a mutual respect for understanding how each of us like to collect.
Mhm.
I prefer my vintage cards graded,
Mhm.
and you prefer yours ungraded. And I can see your point of view of wanting it your way, and I think while you may not want it for your collection, you understand maybe why collectors like myself and Don, if you see the cards in his background,
Sure.
why we do collect graded cards. And so I don't know if you want to maybe touch upon again or expand what we were saying pre-show about just different ways of collecting and different things, but
Yeah, so we were talking about in that case, with me and a lot of people maybe watching this, a lot of guys I've gotten to know on YouTube through the last. I've had a channel. Um, they're not all. They've kind of come into collecting vintage. We'll say within the last 10 years, or they came back to collecting and started in vintage within the last 10 years. Well, within the last 10 years, let's say go back to 2010, so 13 years ago, graded cards were very common. Buying online was the way to do it, just like it is now. And of course, things have changed since then. But a lot of people don't realize there was a history of card collecting vintage before there was eBay, before there was graded cards, and that's when I started doing it. So I was used to feeling the card or smelling it. I don't know if I ever really sniffed them, but I understand when people talking about the smell of a card.
I have.
Um, so and you can see the difference, and you start to learn the nuances. So I'm not advocating that collecting ungraded is the only way, but for me, I don't. When I hear people say, "Well, I would prefer it graded," the reasons that they give don't hit any points for me, because they're protected. Well, my cards are in whatever top loaders or other protect. They are protected. I'm not throwing them around like I would have as a kid just because they're a PSA case. Um, the fact that I know that they're authentic. Well, I buy from reputable people, and I'm very careful, and I've done my due diligence in knowing who I'm collecting from and why and all this stuff. And then, so again, I'm not trying to make an argument for or against graded, but I see a lot of people that when it comes up that people like myself or Jake or anybody else that likes raw cards or ungraded cards, there's this attack. Well, how can you do that? Or vice versa. People that collect like I do and they say, I don't understand why you. Well, you don't have to understand why other people do it the way they do it. To me, I think it's great that they do it. I think it's fine that people buy packs to try to pull the big pull. I'm not going to do it. I
Yeah.
think it's great that people buy all the shiny stuff and the printed scarcity of one of ones or one of a hundreds. That's fine because that's what they really enjoy. If you're doing it within reason, if you're doing it with your own budgetary constraints and enjoying it, go for it. I don't care. I don't care if you don't collect baseball or if you don't know baseball history. To me, that's part of this whole community. That's whole part of the whole thing. So, what
Yeah.
we were discussing before, that's why I collect the way I do. It's because that's the way I've always done it.
Yeah.
I was
You,
easily
you,
into my collecting career before eBay was even started. So,
you bring up a good point. My local card shop
mhm.
is, if it's not the oldest continually operating card shop remaining in the country, it's maybe number two. They started in, when did they start? 1979, something like that.
Wow.
And in central Pennsylvania, and you go into the shop and it's not modern looking at all. They have display cases, and now they do have modern boxes and packs and stuff like that, but their vintage is all ungraded. They have one small display case of some graded cards. That's it. Nothing modern graded. Not, I mean, hardly. Like I said, I bet you in their display case, at most 30 cards in the entire shop are graded.
That
Everything
probably
else
came
is
in
ungraded.
a collection or something he bought and just.
And they don't have a website. They do a little selling on eBay, but it's non-sports card stuff. Other they'll have games or non-sports cards or other unique collectibles that they may have, that they found an avenue for on eBay, but they don't do hardly any online sales. It's customers coming in from a wide area because they've always, either traveling, they've stopped in over the last 30, 40 years and still do. And so they are, surviving and stuff, but it's going back to pre-internet, pre-grading. Like I said, that card dealer, he didn't have a PSA submission that he would say, hey, let me submit your cards to PSA for you and all this stuff. He doesn't do any grading. And yet a lot of the cards in my collection that are the graded BVG are ones that I bought from him ungraded. So I mean, he had an eye for um, really nice looking cards and prices them accordingly on grade. So a lot of them he'd have the like the near mint price, and then underneath, based on the grade, this is what he's selling it for, to give you an idea of relative condition versus the asking price or the sale price. And yeah, I don't want to say this in a bad way, but he's old school. He's That's how he collected. And Drew, I think you're saying that that's how you started collecting, and really that's how I started collecting as well.
Absolutely.
And even for my Wade Boggs collection, I don't I haven't graded any Boggs card. Now, have I occasionally bought one that was graded only because it was maybe a low serial number and someone else graded it and it came on eBay? I'm like, well, I don't know if I'm going to have another opportunity, so I'll go after this one. But I had very few graded Boggs cards. They're all ungraded because, again, that's so. But I changed my mindset a little bit when it came to vintage. But that's just that one aspect. Other than that, I'm just like you in terms of my Boggs collection and stuff. Just I want the card.
Sure. Yeah. And that's great. And all sorts of collections, all sorts of collectors. And again, my thing is enjoy this hobby however you can enjoy it. And I just don't like negativity towards anything with people because, I'll have opinions on anything, but all of our opinions they're never going to line up. So that's the adult way to talk to people. Is just I don't, you I may agree with your opinion on this, but that doesn't mean I don't like you as a person or I can't be happy for you if you buy a PSA whatever or an SGC whatever. Like when friends of mine get say they do a reveal video, I watch them because they're excited or disappointed. Part of the thing. I'm not like, what's wrong with you? You just wasted money. You could have picked up another car because
Yeah.
that's if that's where their budget is, then fine. I don't care.
Yeah.
Um, and if they sell it to me, I know it'll be protected as it gets mailed to me, and then I'll break it out of the case. No, I'm just well,
Yeah.
no, I'm not kidding.
Well, and like when you and Jake show off cards, I don't I don't look at the display again, whether it's in a a rigid
Hmm.
sleeve top loader, PSA grade. When someone's showing off their card, I'm looking at the card and I'm enjoying the card and happy for them that they bought that card. I'm not saying, oh, well, that's not in a PSA label, then I'm not interested in looking at it
Exactly.
because I we all enjoy cards. Just some people want to display them a little bit differently than others. That's how I look at it.
And that's fine.
I want to
And that,
show you guys something about how you used to collect. So, as you guys know, I collect graded, and this is the only set that I'm going after because this was the very first set that I collected as a kid. But I pulled this out of a pack, and the reason I know that, see the beautiful D on the back there?
Oh yeah.
There was no way my brother was taking my cards. So I put D's on the back of all my cards, and I'm sure if I went through here, I would find some more of them. And I think they're cool because I'm like, I know I pulled that out of a pack in
Yeah.
1976.
so
Yeah.
my question about that is, if you find one without a D, is that a card you took from him? So
Possibly. But I bought a lot of these afterwards too. But there's another one. This time I went on the bottom.
On the bottom. Yep.
So,
Well, I've seen videos of collectors who are set collectors, and just the joy that they have of completing a set and not caring about condition. Again, for me with vintage, I am about centering and all that stuff, but that's me. That's for the cards that I have. Don, that binder that you have
mhm.
is awesome. And the fact that some of the cards in there have your letter, your
Right.
initial on them, or it doesn't matter to me what the centering is, what the corners are, if there's
Cars are trash.
creases.
But no, I
Right.
don't care.
But I can enjoy them for you
Right.
because I know that those cards in however condition, storage, format, whatever, that's something that you enjoy collecting. I think that is awesome. And
yeah.
and so again, Drew, that's how I look at other collectors. When someone comes up to me, right again, or I watch a video and I see them, putting the cards in. Hey, I finally completed this set or this row of, this binder page, and I see the cards and creases and off center. It's like, okay, well, maybe I wouldn't buy that particular card, but for that collector, they it doesn't matter. They want to have a card, one of every card in that set to say that they have a complete set. And
Maybe
they're
that we
yeah,
get that player that card. So they're
yeah,
like, at least I have it. Whoever it
So
yeah,
may be. I can't afford to have one that's in pristine condition or but this crease isn't that bad to me and I have the card now, whatever it may
so
be.
as a not a conclusion, because I'm not trying to wrap up the video, but in taking all that in plus other stuff we've talked about, this to me this is really cool. So I have a complete 1956 top set, and I would easily say it's in low grade. Now they're not torn in half, but I mean there are creases, there are wear marks, there's probably some pen marks in the back. Centering is all over the place. But I'll tell you why I love that set so much. Besides the fact that it in its the way it was created was a beautiful, or is a beautiful set, is I have a very deep baseball connection in my family. Okay, Like I said, I used to go to games with my dad. He grew up in New York City. He was a Giants fan. He actually he won a contest by being a paper boy back in the 50s. And he got tickets to a Brooklyn Dodgers game, and he hated it because he hated the Dodgers because he was a fan. He actually saw Jackie Robinson play, and he saw Pee Wee Reese play. And going way back, I'm not going to tell the whole story, but my grandmother, as a teenager, saw Babe Ruth play. My grandfather was a huge baseball fan back in the 30s when he was a young adult and growing up. So there's this deep connection, but there's not this connection with collecting. Okay. But when my father has come to my house and looked at my cards and looked at the stuff, he thinks it's cool, and he wouldn't know a 1962 from a 1992. Okay. But when he looks around, he's looking at the players, he's looking at the people. But every time he sees a 1956 card, now my dad was born in 1942, so he would have been 13, 14 years old, depending on the year or part of the year. He always says, there's something familiar about those cards. And I'm thinking at 13, 14, he probably had some 1956 cards.
Did.
So to me, sort of the romantic possibility that maybe one of these beat up cards in my 340 out of the 1956 card, maybe that was my dad's card. Probably not. The odds are really not
right.
close. But the romantic side of me is like, I don't know which one, but it's possible that a 13-year-old version of my father as a kid went and put down a nickel and bought some, and he's chomping gum and talking to his buddies in New York City, and he's flipping through, and he's like, them stupid Yankees and whatever, and who is this Clemente guy or whatever, because he was new or whatever the thing is. And maybe, just maybe, one of those beat up cards that I have was in my dad's hands when he pulled it from a pack. Probably not, but that's the story for me. That's why I collect, and that's why I don't bother. It doesn't bother me in that set to have beat up cards, because that's what my dad's card would have looked like if they actually survived this many years. So,
well, I have a lot, most of the cards that I collected when I first started collecting. 1978 was my first set, and I told the story that a bunch of my 78s, or pretty much all of my 78s and 79s, got dumped accidentally in a kiddie pool and got all wet. And you know what happens to wet cardboard? And my mom tried her best to, pat it down and get all and put books on top of whatever. But most of them, if you look at, and I still have them, and I wouldn't give them up for anything. I mean, the conditions are just they're terrible. I mean, if you hold it up, you can see some of them have a wave and stuff. Yeah, and
of course,
not all of them are like that.
Steal that beat up card.
Yeah, and I still have those 78s and 79s, and I'll never get rid of them.
yeah,
I could easily to them and always say, "Hey, they're worthless." Just why do I have them? But no, those were my very first cards that I collected as a kid. I remember going to that same corner store that my grandfather went to and asked for those #1 issues and got the Sports Illustrated. That same corner store we went to after every Sunday when I got my allowance, and I'd buy either a Star Wars comic book or a pack of baseball cards.
That's pretty cool.
And I remember the inside of the store. I remember looking at and getting the packs and opening the packs, and the smell of those cards. And I don't care what condition they're in. They're staying in my collection.
Yeah, I think that's amazing. And you could. I talk about story all the time, but when it comes to cards, you can sell your cards, but you can't sell your story. And those wavy cards that you own, or the ones with D's on the back that you own, Don, that's all about the story. Who cares what they're worth? And the truth is when we're gone, our children or grandchildren, they may not be worth anything to them, or they may be because they were our cards. I don't know, but the story, that's why I do YouTube, because I don't add to my collection. I don't really add anything, but I want to tell my stories, because some point, someday, my kids and I don't have any grandkids, but someday I probably will. They may want to look back and be like, well, why did he collect this? Why does he have that? And I want there to be a documentation of a story of me telling it with a smile on my face and saying, "This is how I got it." Whether it's about this egg beater thing behind me, or whatever else we've talked about in this hour. I want to relay those stories, not just for you guys who I don't know personally. I mean, I've never met personally, but for my future family, so they can look back and it's a legacy, and that's why my name is a vintage legacy. It's not that I am a legacy; it's that I have built a legacy, and I want that to pass on so they can understand what was special to me about it, whether they care about baseball or cards or anything else or not.
Well, I think that's a great way to end on this. Don, you had anything else to?
No, I think you're right. I just hear people say I don't make videos because I haven't bought any new cards recently. And I'm like, oh, yeah, to me, you're missing the point. It's not about just the card you buy. It's what Drew just said. The stories and the legacy is what makes this hobby beautiful, and this community. And having people like Drew on here is such a joy. It really enjoy hearing your stories and your perspective. Even you turned to what could have possibly been a negative, having Brooks Robinson sign and Mickey Mantle ball, to a positive, and that's cool.
Agreed. Totally agree.
Yeah. Well, Drew, it has been a pleasure having you on. I hope someday that we can meet in person, whether it be at a future show or some other happenstance that we happen to get. I know we're several states away. Don and I are obviously much closer, but I hope to someday get to meet you in person. And Don, I promise for the next episode, it will be back on me. It will not be another month before we do another episode. Probably won't be another week because after all this craziness, then I have some vacation time, and then it's the national. But we will be doing this again because Don and I have a great time having guests like Drew on this show. So again, Drew, thanks one more time for being on the show, and until next time, thanks for watching.